We have alcohol taxes for alcohol companies. We have
But it's
tobacco
across the board.
taxes
You're
for
not
tobacco
targeting one
companies.
particular business.
Every tobacco business pays the tobacco taxes, just like every hotel will have to offer health insurance. And every alcohol company pays the alcohol taxes, just as every hotel will have to offer the health insurance. We do have industry-specific mandates relative to not only taxation, but regulation. Every construction business has to have a worker wearing a hard hat on the construction site. So we do have regulations specific to industries. And if this is going to be a regulation specific to this industry, there's really, I mean, you can talk about fairness all you want, but it actually happens in so many industries.
I understand, but it's across the board and it's specific to that industry.
This is across the board to all hotels, yes.
But it's not, health insurance is not specific to only hotels, and you're not supporting your data. So, like I said, whenever the senators put together a bill, you guys should really have supporting data whenever you present something, and make sure that that data is true and accurate. What you're presenting are all subjective things, and they're all actually individual pieces of information that you're just trying to tie together. And I just want to make sure we don't go off the rails here, because it needs to go back to the fact that we provide insurance. There are ways we can identify the uninsured population and the outstanding receivables. The employer groups, especially the hotels, already provide that avenue for the employees. To mandate it further outside of the private sector, that is, you need to look at the core, the source of the problem. Because I can tell you now, even though you mandate all this, you're not going to fix the problem at GMH. You're just creating more problems for everybody else, and you're going to create really a divide with the hotels, where they're going to have to pick and choose within staffing, and you don't know what's going to happen with part-time and casual. To mandate that, like I said, you're going to have problems with the insurance companies and how to administer that. It's the same thing with the FMLA. Guam Department of Labor does not even know how to administer the Guam FMLA law. That is going to have to go back to the employer to administer. So there's a lot of things that the legislature does, and you guys need to understand the operations of it. Whether or not you've owned a business or operated a business, this is something that goes direct back into the operational costs of doing business. Mm-hmm. And you're increasing the cost of doing business by increasing benefits, wages, or anything like that. It's going to hurt directly to the bottom line. And so what's going to happen is you're going to continue to see increasing costs and reduction in forces over time, and lowered services. So I implore all of you to really look at the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is not whether or not a hotel has insurance or not. We already answered that question. They do. The heart of the matter is the uninsured market, fixing that.
The heart of the matter is how many of your employees have health insurance.
You said the issue is
refusing to
GMH.
provide that number, which only further underscores to me that there might be a rather large number, and I think that at this juncture, I think the public, especially because this is a bill that's going to put the vote before the public deserves to know that.
Okay, so here's a number for you. If the uninsured population is 39,000 people, we have 6,000 people. Of that, I already told you, 19% represent part-time casual. Those are more likely the people who don't have insurance with their hotel but might have. That's only 1,140. Do you know what percentage that is of 39,000 people of the uninsured? 3%. So you're trying to target a population that is only 3% out of the entire uninsured population?
So how many of your employees do not have health insurance? What's the
I don't have that answer. I only have answers for you based on who's part-time and casual, and that's 1,140. And out of 39,000 people, that's 3%.
See,
You're not
I'm
even
just getting
looking
lost of all
at
the
the main
numbers.
problem.
I'm just trying to find out how many of your employees have health insurance or not.
You're not hearing
and you
me.
keep throwing all these different numbers at me, but it's a very simple
But
number.
the problem is the uninsured and the people who don't pay the bills at GMH, right? So the bigger problem, if our part-time and casual is only 3% of that 39,000 people, 39,000 of the uninsured population, there's a much bigger part of the pie you have to look at. And you're really going after the ones who are actually offering benefits. So I would encourage all of you to redirect your efforts and look at the larger piece of the pie, because if you keep going after the same industry, it doesn't work. You need to go after the 39,000 uninsured population and understand why they remain uninsured. We need to look at ways to fund it, subsidize it, or come up with additional funds to pay for it. Otherwise, that problem will never go away, whether or not you require insurance to the private sector. You need to address, let's say you pass a bill for universal, like what we talked about, where all employers have to have an insurance. If there's still a high unemployment rate and there's 39,000 uninsured, you still haven't addressed the problem at GMH. And that's what I'm trying to get you to understand. You keep asking me for a number. It doesn't matter. Our number already is insured for the most part, majority. The small piece is a very, very small piece of the population that you're trying to address. You should focus on the full 39,000 uninsured population and the outstanding receivables at GMH. That's it. That is the heart of your legislation. That is what I encourage all of you to work hard at.
The heart of my legislation is to ensure that our largest private sector employer that's enjoying hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and $139 million in net operating revenue when you less out employee expenses has all of its employees covered with health insurance. That's what the bill does.
I have a question for you then.
And it's part of the overall process to begin tackling the uninsured, but surely you start with your biggest employers, and especially those that are bringing in the lion's share of the revenue. And that's what this bill is intending to do. And that's why the questions that I'm asking are so important, even though you insist on not providing a solid answer to them. But, I don't think we're going to get anywhere, and that's one of the reasons why this is a referendum. Because if the politicians can't get the answers and it goes to referendum, then the people will be the ones to make the determination based on the information provided to them. And part of the referendum process is an education campaign by the proponents and the opponents of the legislation. So I think that it just further underscores the need for us to put this before the people so that we can get the hard answers. And if the data shows that it's actually a bad idea for this industry to be held to this standard, our people will make that decision.
So I have a question. If the largest employer is actually government of Guam, why aren't you mandating that the government of Guam have 100% coverage of employees and dependents?
I think that it would be a great comparison if we had the same levels of full-time employment and the same levels of
but in principle, it's the same question.
Of living wages with respect to how much you guys pay your people. So we really can get into those kind of comparisons, but I'm not trying to go there. I'm just trying to ask the question of whether or not this is something that we should put before our people to decide. And I think that tonight's conversation just further underscores it, so thank you very much. Mr. Chairman.
I think for me, I have a different take on this whole issue, and I'm already seeing the benefits of having a public hearing. There was a bill that was introduced, and those who believe are being targeted by this bill have an opportunity, and you have to come in tonight to say that you are providing health insurance. For me, the way I read this bill, if the question is to be put before the people, that hotels and similar lodging facilities provide a qualified health benefits plan for all of their employees and their dependents, this doesn't mandate it. It says that hotels have to provide this. Now, if the additional requirement is that they're going to be mandated to provide health insurance, then unfortunately the unintended consequence is that the employees are going to have to bear the higher cost of health insurance. For those who may be part-time or student or a dependent of someone, they would have to be, they are being covered by their parents, or they're being covered by their spouse. This initiative will just say that they have to be provided. I don't know if it goes further than what's already being provided by the hotel industry.
Well, you have to understand the way insurance works. Just because you are adding in let's say you're in charge of children, other children, insurance is paid for single, two-party family. Once you have a family rate, it can include more than three. And insurance companies would be really against that. Because if it's so liberal, like what has happened with the Guam FMLA, where it's so liberal, it covers so many people.
No, Mary, you missed my point. I'm saying they're already covered because they're covered by somebody
Yes,
else.
but I'm talking about how the insurance companies would view that. If you include that for all part-time and casual, that's
I'm
a
not-
lot of adverse selection
Yeah,
that goes into it.
I'm saying that I'm not trying to include anybody. I'm just saying that if they're a part-time employee at a hotel and on your books they don't have health insurance, it's possible that they're being covered by some other means.
Yes. Oh, I thought you were saying that this is a good thing.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I
What-
misunderstood that. No, I thought you were talking about that, once you do this, you cover all the other
only thing good about what
dependents.
we're doing so far is we're having a discussion, a very public meeting about an initiative that Senator Nicholas is trying to propose, and that he had said some things in his legislative findings which you found to be, in your words, inflammatory. So tonight you had an opportunity to go through all of those comments or all of those statements that's contained in this bill, and you had an opportunity to refute it. So I'm just talking about the benefit of having a public hearing, so that we can.
I guess it's unnecessary for us because we already understand that and we provide it, to all of the employees who are eligible. The insurance companies, working for an insurance company before.
No, Mary, wait, stop. The public hearing is necessary because we're talking about this, but that's the extent of my comments. I've never indicated my support or non-support for the bill.
I know, but what
I'm-
I'm trying to say is that
You're saying that
it's
the
not
bill's not
necessary
necessary.
because we already understand that. We already provide the insurance. This bill really should have been more about GMH and the outstanding receivables.
So
I
what
would
I'm-
really prefer
so
that
what
it
I'm
removes
trying to
us.
say is if the bill's trying to put the question before the people that hotels have to provide qualified health benefits plan for its employees and dependents, that's already being done. That's what we're
Correct.
testifying tonight.
That's why I'm saying it's unnecessary. And why would it be up to the people of Guam to require a business to offer that? That's why I'm asking the question. If the largest employer is really not us, the largest employer is government of Guam,
But-
why wouldn't that same question be asked of the government of Guam to offer 100% to all dependents?
But providing a qualified health benefits plan is not the same thing as mandating it. So if you're
We don't have a qualified health benefits plan, and you're going down the road of Affordable Care Act. And so that's why it's also premature. You're trying to incorporate something that doesn't exist. And it's not fair to require one industry to do something that's not mandated across the board on Guam. We don't even have a defined qualified health plan. That's something that the insurance commissioner has to go through with all of the insurance companies to define what the benefits are. With the
So what
Affordable
kind of
Care
health
Act, you're
insurance-
missing steps
What
in this.
kind of health insurance are you offering then if you don't believe that that's a qualified health benefits plan?
Okay, so all of the plans that are offered are from our 4 carriers. Some of them have off-island insurance through for their executive plans. For the most part, majority of the employees have Take Care, Stay Well, Net Care, and Select Care. But my point in that is they all have health insurance plans, and they are all approved by the insurance commissioner. But to use the words qualified health plan, we don't have that on Guam. That is taking terms from the Affordable Care Act. And in order to have a qualified health plan, you have to propose that to the insurance commissioner as a qualified. It's like the basic benefits. It's like what GovGuam does during their negotiations to negotiate on behalf of the pool of all of the employees for GovGuam. You have a basic plan, right, with a high deductible, and then people have to pay extra for that plan. But at the end of the day, those are benefits negotiated for all of Guam. That's approved and identified as a qualified plan because it's pre-negotiated with all the carriers. The hotels don't do that. Nobody else does that in private sector. Everybody has direct negotiations with the carrier, and the insurance commissioner approves all carriers' plans. But Affordable Care Act is the one that actually you have to go through a proposal process with the federal government to submit qualified health plans. We're using terms that don't exist on Guam, and that's why I'm saying it's premature. Because there's no qualified health plan for private sector companies right now. Everybody is just an approved insurance plan through the insurance commissioner. we're trying to mix in stuff from Affordable Care Act into this, but without having the substantiated, like, it's nothing with substance in here that's been approved or even reviewed by the insurance commissioner to be called a qualified health plan.
But by whatever means, you call it, you're still providing health insurance.
Yes.
So that if someone gets injured, God forbid, and they need the resources of GMH or a private
Yeah, for sure.
care provider,
They
have
any plan
coverage.
to be sold on Guam has to be approved by the insurance commissioner. And those are the plans that are afforded to the employees through contract negotiations with each individual hotel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, I would like to direct everyone's attention to page 7, and I'll read it because it's there. For the purposes of this article, a qualifying health benefits plan means one or more health benefits plan offered by an employer with the following features. A, all health benefits plans offered by the employer shall require the payment of not more than 50% of premiums by the employee, provided that at least one of the health benefits plans offered by the employer must have no premium cost the employee for individual coverage. That Section A basically means that the implementation of this plan will have no added out-of-pocket cost to the employee if that one minimum option is provided. Letter B, all health benefits plans offered by the employer must meet the requirements for an essential health benefits package required in and by the Secretary of Health and Human Services under Section 1302A of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Such essential health benefits package shall meet the criteria under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and any amendments thereto for deductibles and out-of-pocket limits. So there's the substance of the bill. We're basically saying that you must provide a qualified health benefits plan. It must have the minimum requirements as stipulated in the Affordable Care Act, which is federal, and one of the plan options must have an option that does not increase the out-of-pocket expenses to the employee. So it will be a high deductible plan that conforms with the Affordable Care Act and does not require out-of-pocket employee costs. So thank you, Tom. That's all here in the bill. That's part of the referendum portion of the bill. The first part, the first 5 pages of the bill basically stipulates the referendum process, but that is the referendum language, and it's there. It's pretty clear what the bill would do. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I understand that, and that health insurance companies all, like I said, submit to the insurance commissioner and comply with the laws of Guam and also follow the federal benefits, I'm sure. But to do all of this and still require all of the other, I think that we're being, there's other steps that need to take place before this happens. And that's why I think the discussion needs to take place. Well, it's two separate issues. One is the GMH, outstanding receivables, and then the second thing is the issue of the health insurance benefits. And that is something that is a much larger issue, and it's not a hotel-only specific issue if you're wanting to address that. And that is something that Senator Rodriguez has been going down that road with several stakeholders and some of your fellow colleagues to talk about this universal health care, where you have to submit to go through a process to create qualified health plans. So this is not really something, it's kind of it's not even half-baked. It's just too preliminary to put on a referendum, for one, especially when there are efforts already being made to have this discussion. None of the sister organizations are in support of this universal health plan right now. We have been talking to them. We understand how the insurance companies have been working with Senator Rodriguez, but we haven't seen any draft legislation or descriptions on this. It's all been talk, and I know that the Society of Human Resource Management has been doing a survey to find out what things should go into this, should we go down this road. So that's all I'm saying is, it's really too premature to go down this road, especially only for hotels, when efforts are being made to look at this from a community perspective, to be fair across the board, but also to understand how the insurance companies are going to work with this. And there are a lot of unknowns. So to even demand or require that, like, for example, with the part-time and casuals, those are very problematic because there's no way to prove that through SWICA or whatever, and you're really going to get adverse selection with people who just come in and get a plan and then they have multiple coverage and then you don't have coordination of benefits. We live on a small island, and if you have 2 or 3 plans operating together, I mean, that could create a huge mess, and we already have a huge problem on our hands. We don't want to create another one. And that's why I think we're taking our time with even addressing the Affordable Care Act issues, because